cyberpunk style meets skirmish combat in Infinity. Experience 8 high-tech factions and fight to control the human sphere at the Infinity Hub on beastofwar.com. From Viking halls to the cities of the future, terrain buffs will love our foreground hub. Watch gaming tables of all genres come to life at beastofwar.com.
I'm Warren, a huge fan of tabletop games. But few games out there have a story so deep as Warhammer 40k. I'm setting out to explore this vast universe and the game with my trusty guide, AJ. So join us on Warhammer 40k Charted.
Hi guys, and welcome to 40k Charted. Another unit spotlight. This time myself and AJ is going to get into a bit of rough riding.
Nothing like a bit of rough riding
Nothing like
on
a
a Monday morning.
Yeah. So, welcome to Monday Morning Rough Riding. Right. I actually know what these guys are. I've had an interesting relationship with the Rough Riders. It kind of started off with some confusion.
Okay.
Dudes on horses in sci-fi. Okay. Then it kind of went into a form of despair. Dudes on horses in 40k? Then before turning into a sense of awe and coolness of dudes on horses in 40k. It's one of those ones that whenever you're first getting into 40k, because you so very quickly get engulfed with things like Land Raiders, Vindicators, now with all the big flyers and things like that as well. And you think about Titans, all this eye candy.
Yeah.
And then you think about some dudes on horses.
Yeah.
And you know, it's not until, well, for me at least, it's not until you're in for a while you start to maybe become just a little bit jaded with seeing all the shiny stuff all the time. And then suddenly dudes on horses becomes so much more appealing.
Yeah.
It really does become so much more appealing.
Well, it's one of the fundamentals of the Astra Militarum, the Imperial Guard, is the fact that they are so unbelievably
Old-fashioned.
But not even that. They're fighting such an uphill battle.
Yeah.
As an individual, you know, as a war machine, they plod along okay. They, you know, kind of slowly wear down the opposition through just sheer attrition. Mm-hmm. But as an individual, that's a terrible job.
It's not great, is it? Yeah.
You know, and it's that idea that the Astra Militarum will use any means at their disposal.
Yeah.
To achieve their ends, achieve their means. You know, they are the most heroic force in the Imperium, in my opinion, because okay, Space Marines are amazingly well developed. They're superhuman. They've got the best equipment. They kick ass and take names. The Inquisition have all the kind of shadiness and all that kind of dark stuff to play around with and keep themselves. But it's the Astra Militarum that are there when a Nid invasion hits the planet. Well, who's going to stop them long enough till the civilians get off site? It's going to be the Astra Militarum every time.
First in, last out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they're just stuck, you know, and they have nothing to do but grin and bear it.
Yeah.
And they do. And they don't have the equipment that the Marines have. They don't even have the equipment that the Militarum Tempestus would have, the Stormtroopers would have. They're just the dog faces and the grunts, and they have to do the battle. Yeah. You know, they just have to do or die.
So they grin and bear it while the rough riding happens.
Okay. So whenever we look at the Rough Riders, they're an even more typical example of these kind of worlds that you know, this is still on the worlds where the Rough Riders come from and the cavalry come from. They're worlds that is their form of warfare. If they're fighting, kind of faction to faction or tribe to tribe, they will fight on horseback, and that's the kind of level playing field, and it's probably the most advanced type of fighting that they will have. Yeah. However, whenever they start to kind of become inducted into the Imperial Guard and sent to these different worlds, then all of a sudden they have to go up against Tyrannid hive fleets and Orc war bosses and Eldar craft worlds and all these things that can squished them like a bug. So they're still happy to fight in their time-honored tradition, which is on horseback.
It's so cool.
I think it's really it's the stuff that legends are made of.
Are Rough Riders in the standard Astra Militarum Codex?
They're in the yeah.
Are they a fast attack option or a troop option?
They're a fast attack.
Yeah,
they're a fast attack option. There's really not much difference between their stat line and a guardsman, other than
because I was going to say, can I do an all cavalry army? And of course you can, because you go Unbound. You can do anything you want these days.
You can go Unbound. Forge World also have the Death Riders of Krieg army list, where you can take Death Rider of Krieg HQ choice, and then the Death Riders of Krieg as troop choices.
Yeah.
So you can do an all cavalry army.
And can I take it then? I can take that another step. That the other thing we know about Imperial Guard is that depending on their home world or whatever they've come from, you have the Voistrans, for example. Okay, but they're big kind of Cossack kind of looking hats and stuff like that. There's no reason why, unless there's a fluff reason why you couldn't have a Voistran cavalry.
No, I don't see why not. That fits the theme. You know, I could see the Voistran hussars, you know.
So what you're saying is, I could go to the Perry Twins website or Vitrix or some of these guys, and pull up some Napoleonic era cavalrymen, right? And maybe do a little bit of converting on the weapons and stuff like that, and do the most beautiful 28mm Imperial Guard cavalry
you
army.
Could, yeah.
Ever.
It would look class, yeah.
Prussian. You do it as the Napoleonic Prussians.
Yeah. All the braid,
all the black and all the braids and everything. And I'm going to enjoy this episode. Right.
They would be cool. The other thing is there's a wee company out there that actually produces bikes. I'll pull this up. It's Curious Construct.
Yeah.
Curious Constructs, and they produce Imperial Guard.
That's sort of, cool.
Bike style things.
Yeah. So they don't have to be on horses.
No.
They could be on iron horses.
They could be on iron horses or any type of thing. The Death Korps currently have the only official models from Forge World, and they are gorgeous models. But I like my kidneys where they are, so I don't think I'll be selling one anytime soon.
Well, this is the thing. As nice as they are, and they are beautiful, there's no shortage of beautiful cavalry out there that is all plastic.
Yeah.
They're like loads and loads of plastic cavalry that's easy to convert, easy to put together. Yeah. You know, you could even do them as Mongolians. So you get that kind of slightly more Mongolian Rough Rider kind of a thing.
Well, the planet of Attila in 40k is the kind of, that's all about the Mongol kind of type of cavalry. The older models we have no longer available, but they all had the fur ruffled helmets and kind of, you know, fur trimmed boots and all that kind of mustaches going on that the kind of Mongols would have had. So there's a whole, you know, any era of cavalry we've had, it's out there in the Imperium.
Well, start taking me through the background then. Weave me a story, AJ.
So cavalry in the 41st millennium kind of come from a large range of different sort of backgrounds. Even the likes of Cadia would use kind of the Rough Rider squads or kind of these kind of horseback elements to basically act as scouts for a force. You know, there are some places where scout vehicles or even kind of infantry soldiers wouldn't be able to get to, either because they couldn't carry enough resources on their backs, or because the vehicle would get bogged down where an animal wouldn't. So sometimes there's application for an animal in a sort of what we would consider a kind of a modern day style force in the 41st millennium, you know?
I suppose one of the questions I have, or you know, as with everything in 40k, are these just normal horses, or have these horses been genetically modified in some way, or
Well, that's
or does it depend?
that's a range. Again, as big as the Imperium is, it could be anything. The 41st Millennium employs kind of standard what they call in the fluff Terran horses, which would just be like our horses.
Yeah.
Right the way through to the Death Korps of Krieg, who essentially have genetically modified their horses. They include extra organs to allow them to breathe in toxic atmospheres. They are pretty much hairless as well, to stop kind of the spread of fleas and ticks and stuff like that there, which are, you know, synonymous with trenches and lice and things like that. And then we also have the likes of Mogul Khmer, who is probably the most famous Attilan horseman. He kind of follows that Mongol tradition of killing his uncle for head of the tribe, and then seeking permission of the king to go off into the Imperial Guard to fight, because he just loved fighting. He was gifted a iron steed, so a metal horse-like
A robot horse.
a robot horse essentially. Because he fought so much.
And who gifted them that?
That was the Mechanicus gifted him that.
Why'd they do that?
He stopped a Necron invasion fleet on Lorcar 4, I think, is the name of the planet.
Oh, Lokar 4.
Sorry, Loxar 4.
Oh yeah, of course.
Yeah,
Loxar 4, yeah.
It was a Manufactorum world, and he led a huge cavalry charge against the Necrons. That's got to be a pretty brave, almost
psychotic.
Almost psychotic, you know. And so basically,
so they thought, yeah, you did well, but we noticed you went through 50 horses in that campaign. Here's an iron one, you know, a ceramite horse.
Essentially, so he's got a kind of
I have to ask then,
horse.
And this is now starting to stretch the fluff, but horses, yeah, could they ride bears?
Why not?
You know, it's like, because you have the space wolves and stuff like that riding around on wolves and stuff. You know, well, why not? You know, could you? You know, that they've tamed bears, and you could have Cossacks on bears.
In the old Catachan Codex, there was some really nice conversions of Catachan on Cold One riders. On Cold Ones, you know, the Warhammer lizards, lizard men steeds.
Cool. So like little lizard dudes.
Yeah, like on the back of the Cold Ones.
They're jungle fighters, so they could be on the back of tigers.
They could be on the back of tigers, yeah.
Imperial Guard on tigers.
There was also one.
That's Charlie Sheen stuff right there.
There was years ago. There was a Catachan army in White Dwarf where they did a kind of Apocalypse Now take on the Catachan, because they kind of they did a sort of Vietnam sort of era army, and it was kind of land speeders converted into lemon russes, stuff like that there, so they were kind of skimming. But they had converted their Rough Riders on surfboards, on hoverboards. So
they
were pretty cool.
When it comes to cavalry, though, we could really start to think outside the box a little bit. You know, it's you know, rattlings on badgers is probably not a great idea, but you know, we don't have to. Although I am really thinking of hitting up the Vitrix site or one of these plastics Napoleonics places and see if I can get me some Prussian cavalry to get them all. Imagine how beautiful that army would look.
It would be cool.
But you know, it's you would never win a game with it. Well, you might. Well, that's what we're about to find out.
Yeah,
but it's but just imagine how beautiful that would look. You know, it's your opponents would go, even if I win, you win. You know, with that.
Yeah, I mean, it takes
with all the banners and everything. Like bring back up our Forge World ones.
Yeah,
because up there you can see all the kind of the
pendants. The pendants. Yeah,
hanging off the spears, the pointy bits.
Yeah. There's no doubt about it. It's you know, it's probably the most iconic image of warfare that we have is the cavalry charge, and it would make for a great scenario.
Can you imagine doing the Scotsman from the Battle of Waterloo? Can't remember the name of the regiment, but a very famous regiment did a big charge, and Napoleon, and I'm paraphrasing here, said the finest soldiers in the world, but the worst led. So it's, but you could have all the kilts of tartan and stuff like that there, and that's really what I get a real vibe of the Imperial Guard. The more you've explained it to me, the more I realize that tradition is there because tradition is the only thing that sticks around long enough. That's why the tradition is so important, because the people don't live long enough. So you need something there for everybody to hook on to.
Well, that's it. I mean, essentially with the Imperial Guard, you've got they're collecting, these vast bodies of men from different planets all over the place.
Yeah.
And it would be really hard to kind of make everyone fit a sort of structure and bring them out of their planet and go, actually, all those traditions that you have from home, you can't have any of those now. You have to now conform within our little box.
Yeah.
So what they do is they allow them to bring those traditions with them. And with the likes of the Rough Riders, you do have whole regiments of Rough Riders being assembled.
Yeah.
But then they're broken down into smaller parts and given off to different companies, different, types of Imperial Guard regiment as scouts or as counter-attacking units, So it really, the Imperial Guard has to incorporate all different types of troops, and regardless of where they're from.
Well, let's talk a little bit about these guys, okay? Because I see you have a nice big chunk of notes just on the Death Korps guys.
Yeah.
So, what can you tell us about the Krieg cavalry?
Well, as we know about the Death Korps Krieg, they specialize in trench warfare. So they specialize in going into wars of attrition.
Yeah.
We're looking at kind of essentially World War I sort of Somme type stuff. Where the cavalry come in is that they, as we've said, have specially bred their cavalry. They've actually had help from the Adeptus Mechanicus, the Biologus department. They like to mess in all things organic.
Did they play with the squidgy stuff?
They play with the squidgy stuff. And they've sort of helped engineer these kind of specific horses for trench warfare. And as we said, they've got very little hair.
It also looks like they've got widened out feet slightly as well.
Yeah, they've almost got like webbed toes to stop them sinking into the mud.
Yeah.
So they're quite an interesting breed. They've got specific organs that stop them from kind of inhaling the chemicals and things like that there that are used in warfare. But even more iconic than that is the actual Death Korps themselves. We know that the Death Korps are fanatic about following orders. This comes back from when their planet Krieg basically succumbed to kind of taint and almost kind of rebelled against the Imperium. Then there was the figurehead of the Death Korps Krieg basically rallied the Death Korps to him and caused virus bombed the planet essentially. Sort of almost destroyed this beautiful planet that was Krieg and turned it into this kind of war-torn sort of mess. And he vowed, and the Death Korps kind of took this vow to die for their Emperor, to repent for the sins of what had gone before. So these guys are absolutely fanatical about following orders and dying in battle. That's their main drive in life. A bit like the Lieutenant Dan in Forrest Gump, my father died in battle.
Yeah.
His father before him and his father before him. So they're dedicated to dying in battle, and that's what makes these guys even crazier for getting on horseback. Because they're they're desperate to get to the front as quickly as possible and die their glorious death on horseback as well. So they're really quite an interesting force. Quite a somber force. There's not a lot of
not a lot of chuckles, is there really?
No, I don't think you'd fancy being sent to the same war zone as them.
No,
you know,
not really. No,
there wouldn't be an awful lot of banter. So, but yeah, they're absolutely fanatical about what they do.
Okay. Rough Riders then. Let's talk about them as in game. How does this all translate in game?
So, as you can imagine, it doesn't bode well for the Rough Riders.
Right, okay.
If we consider their stats right off the bat, weapon skill 3, ballistic skill 3, strength 3, toughness 3, 1 wound, initiative 3, 1 attack, leadership 7, 5+ save. So
that's fairly underwhelming, really, isn't it?
Basically a guardsman.
Yeah. Does the horse get its own stat line?
The horse doesn't, no.
Oh, come on!
But they do count as cavalry,
yeah.
And I'll read out what cavalry get now. So this provides a little bit of a glimmer of hope. Mm-hmm. So movement then.
Yeah.
Cavalry can move up to 12 inches in the movement phase. Mm-hmm. They're not slowed down by difficult terrain, even when charging.
Yeah.
However, cavalry models treat all difficult terrain as dangerous terrain instead. So they would have to take dangerous terrain tests. Mm-hmm. What happens there is when you move through difficult terrain, each member of the squad has to roll a dice equal to the amount of
guys in the squad. Yeah.
On the roll of a 1, you have to take a save. Take a wind. Mm-hmm. It's not, terribly bad. You might lose 1 or 2.
Well, it depends on how much of it you have to go through.
Yeah.
If you do it maybe once a game, that's okay.
Yeah.
But if you end up having to do it multiple times in a game, it's gonna add up.
Yeah. For Imperial Guard, it's worse than the likes of a Thunderwolf cavalry.
Yeah.
For example, that they've got a worse save. However, the special rules that they get when they are cavalry is they have the Fleet and Hammer of Wrath special rules. Mm-hmm. So Fleet's great. Fleet basically allows you to re-roll 1 or both of the dice for assaulting. Mm-hmm. So again, it gives you the chance to get a better assault move. And Hammer of Wrath is great as well, because if Hammer of Wrath takes place in the assault phase, when you move into base, if you pass your charge and you move into base to base with the enemy, every model that you have in base to base with the enemy gets 1 attack at the initiative 10 step at their base strength. Now they're only strength 3, but it's a free attack for charging, so it's not too bad at all. If you need the extra attacks, if you have a squad of 10, that's adding up fairly quickly if you can get them all in base to base.
Yeah.
So they're cavalry, so they've got that good movement as well, and that really plays quite a big part, because traditionally the Astra Militarum have kind of suffered from slow moving units. So it's nice to have something with a little bit of speed. Mm-hmm. Even though we've got the likes of Valkyries, Vendettas, Hellhounds, which are now fast. There's units out there that are fast, but very few of them are as cheap as the Rough Riders. And this is where we kind of start to see the strength in the Rough Riders and why they're a useful unit to have. I haven't really sold them so far, I'm sure.
I'm sold on the look of them. I'm utterly sold on the look of them. I'm just not sure how the hell I'm going to use them, but yeah.
So that's the kind of basic stats. So nothing spectacular. The Rough Rider Sergeant, he's pretty much the same, except he's got 2 attacks and leadership 8. Mm-hmm. So they've got 5+ saves. So again, pretty much standard for Imperial Guard.
If you're following along on this as well, you'll find it. It's page 45, I think, of
page 45
of the Imperial Guard Codex.
This is where it starts to get a little bit interesting as well.
Yeah.
They come standard with the crack and frag grenades. Mm-hmm. Crack grenades are strength 6 AP4 grenades. So they're quite useful against vehicles. Particularly whenever you consider that most of the time you'll be hitting against the rear armor. Yeah. The rear armor of a lot of vehicles is kind of 10, 11. Yeah. So That's very helpful. The sergeant, I usually would upgrade the sergeant with a melted bomb. I tend to use the squad in low numbers against sort of small elite or vehicle units, just because that's what they tend to do quite well against. And again, they're very, very cheap. 55 points will buy you a standard squad. And then it's just it's
How many's in a squad?
you get 5.
Uh-huh.
You start off with 5, and then you can upgrade another 5.
So they're 11 points a model
11 points model
for a dude on horseback.
for a dude on horseback. So they're quite economical for what they are.
Yeah, it means you could have a lot of them if you wanted to go unbound.
Yeah, you could.
Yeah.
Or even in the Death Korps. I think they're a wee bit more expensive in the Death Korps rules, but they do get better weapon skill.
Yeah.
Which is handy. But they're, as a unit, I really like them just for the fact that they are super cheap. They are a lot quicker than a lot of other Imperial units. And with I've used them quite a lot with the Warlord trait in the Imperial Guard, which will allow you to outflank D3 units. A lot of people don't rely on Warlord traits.
Yeah.
Understandable, because you have to roll a D6 and you only get one choice. If you have a combined arms detachment, that gives you the ideal mission commander special rule, which allows you to re-roll your Warlord trait, but it's still only, kind of a 1 in 3 chance of getting it. Or worse. However, if you take a tank commander in the Imperial Guard, which is the 2 Lemon Russ, one of which is your Warlord squadron, they only have 3 Warlord traits that they can actually utilize. So they get to roll on D3 rather than the D6 chart. So if you imagine D3 with a reroll, you're quite likely to get the D3 units outflanking. So that means you can bring your cavalry on in the flanks. So
I just need a Lemon Russ command unit and then all my cavalry.
And then all your cavalry.
Okay,
again, they're brilliant at outflanking because they've got the long range.
I have to ask. Would you? How much would it annoy folk if you did a command unit on horseback, but it was a counts as a Lemon Russ command unit? It's if you did it on the footprint of a Lemon Russ.
Okay, that's interesting.
Base.
Yeah.
Okay, but it was like a little diorama of
maybe
a guy on the horseback with a couple of guys around him or something like that.
Maybe if you did it with
or with a
cannon, a cavalry train. I was going to say, if you had a cavalry train, but it was set up and then you just had the guys standing around. That'd be pretty cool.
So so you have your leader there on the horseback, maybe a cannon kind of thing beside him to do it. It's just I'm trying to while you're going on, I can't get out of my mind how cool would it be to do an all horseback Imperial Guard army. It may not work particularly well, but it's going to be cheap. It is going to be cheap, that's for sure.
Cheap points or
cheap points. If you get the models from the right place, it's not going to cost an awful lot in terms of getting the models either, because these historical guys, you got to go and check them out. These historical guys are doing in their infantry packs, there's something like 50 guys in some of these boxes. It's like 50 guys maybe. It's not a lot of money.
No.
Certainly,
I know
for the cost of maybe one unit of these, I could maybe do half an army using the historicals. And the other thing is, the only difficulty I have with these is all the horses look a little bit static to me. I know that in among the historicals, you've got horses mid pelt and stuff like that. They're gnashing their teeth and everything else. So
the other thing is when I was converting up my own Rough Riders, I found it very difficult. I wanted one rearing up.
Yes.
And the GW horses, their legs are all staggered. So whenever you reared them up, they all
they all go over
like
the
side. So it was tricky. There was a lot of pinning involved in that. But so maybe there's one out there in the
there could well be among all the historical guys.
Bound to be a poser.
So anyway, just as an aside, it would be cool to maybe have a unit like that. How much of an annoyance would it be for a player if you proxied it up really nicely, that it was the same footprint, it had a cannon weapon and stuff on it?
Maybe just a wall as well.
Yeah, sandbags.
Just something that counts as that for Armor 14. But I think that would look brilliant. I don't. I always like to consider the rule of cool with these things. If it looks great, I'm not going to argue. If it kind of fits roughly with what the footprint of the unit should be and where the guns should be, then why not? It would look, it would look great. It would look great.
So, so we have a way maybe to get the warlord traits to get us some outflanking.
Yeah.
What's next then?
Next, really, just about it's again going back to how cheap this unit is. Even for 10 guys, you're talking in around 110, 120 points. So you're talking about the same points as the race that we looked at a couple of weeks ago. The race are much more of a solid choice, I have to say, but within the confines of the Astra Militarum book, the Rough Riders still have their place. The fast attack slots aren't terribly pressurized in the Imperial Guard book. You've got the Valkyries and the Vendettas. They're great choices, but the points do add up very quickly in them. The Hellhounds are the other choice. The Hellhounds, now there's 3 variants of the Hellhounds, but again, for what they are, they're quite expensive. There's Lemon Rust variants that can fulfill the same, very similar role.
Yeah.
The fast is useful, but quite often you just want to use the gun on the Hellhound. You don't really want to be using that speed. Well,
army aside, let's put my dreams of an army aside for the moment. You mentioned the Canopatech Wraiths from a few weeks back, and we had talked about tactically 3 blobs, push them forward and see if you can tie up.
Yeah.
Could we be looking at something similar here? What about 30 horsemen? 30 horsemen are only going to cost about 300 points or something.
Yeah.
So what about 30 horsemen and just push them forward? Do a full-on cavalry charge.
There's no reason why not.
Just to see what happens. Your opponent's going, what is going on?
The other thing is,
and then you follow up with it.
Yeah,
with all the other stuff behind it.
What I haven't mentioned is what the Death Korps, what the Rough Riders are actually armed with.
Yeah.
And as you can see on screen, they're armed with the Hunting Lance.
Yes.
The Hunting Lance is basically, it's just a lance like we have today, except that it's got a small shaped explosive charge on the tip.
Oh, I like that.
So what happens is they charge in, and the first time they reach the enemy, they explode their tip, blow off their end, or whatever terminology.
Okay, yeah. So they stick them in it. They stick it in them, and then it explodes inside.
And it explodes.
Yeah, okay.
And basically, it counts as in game +2 to your strength.
Yes.
AP3. Yeah, and a specialist weapon, so it can't be used in conjunction with other close combat weapons.
And does it only blow off the once?
But it just blows off the once in the game.
Right. So the next time it doesn't.
So next turn it's just you're just using your swords. However, it can be great against small elite units. I've used this against Space Marine tactical squads. You pop the Rhino, you charge in, and you're able to do quite a lot of damage to the 5 or 6 man unit that's usually inside a Rhino these days.
You're not putting these guys in Rhinos, are you?
No, you're
sorry.
You're shooting the Space Marines.
The Space Marines are in the Rhino. Yeah, sorry, I got mixed up there. I was thinking, what? Okay.
And because of the threat range of these guys, they've got that 12-inch move, and then they've got that assault move as well with the fleet. They're going to be quite likely if the Rhino has moved quite quickly towards you. They can also take 2 special weapons per squad as well. So you can have any mix of special weapons. You've got flamers, grenade launchers, melta guns, plasma guns. I don't think I missed out any there. That's the range. So there's quite a lot of versatility within the squad as well. Of what types of weapons they have. Usually I would outfit these with grenade launchers. Again, keeping them cheap. and keeping them quite versatile. Because they are only ballistic skill 3, that's given us 2 extra shots, possibly at strength 6, AP 4, or 2 blasts, strength 3, no AP. But that's going to cause a good bit of damage to something fairly lightly armored.
Yeah.
Or even just put a lot of wounds on those Marines to soften them up before you get there. So it's, you know, they're quite a versatile squad. I've also used them with the Flamers too. And I know a couple of people who run them with the Meltaguns. Again, because they're so quick, they get up quite close and they're able to do that damage. On average, you're going to get 1 that hits. Thinking about the 30 men.
Yeah.
The 30 sort of
3 blobs of 10.
3 blobs of 10. You've got options there, maybe to couple them with some good psychic powers. Maybe you team them up with some invisibility, where they can only get hit on 6s. Or even better, if you give them 4+ invuln. You know, it's a much more kind of solid defense for them.
Yeah.
So there's ways and means in there to kind
of... I like the invisibility.
Yeah.
So you could almost have the Prussian Ghost Riders.
Yeah.
How cool would that be? So
you're snap firing against them, plus your enemy would count as weapon skill 1 as well when they attack.
Yeah.
So again, you're giving yourself a good option to...
Happy enough to put them up against vehicles?
Yeah, yeah. With those crack grenades and with the
exploding lances.
The exploding lances, they're only ending up strength 5.
Right.
So not great. I would rather use the crack grenade. Just throw the crack grenade on them.
So if I went up and encircled a rhino or something like that and used my crack grenades, and then I succeeded, and then I ran off to try and get a unit. I haven't used my exploding lances yet, have I? So
no.
So I can still stick them with the. They don't like it up them, you see. No. So I can still stick them with it and then explode it on them. Yeah.
Yeah. Another thing to say that's quite good about them is people don't know what to do against Rough Riders. Yes. I've touched on this before. I've taken them in battles before where people have kind of set up. I've put my Rough Riders down. People have gone, oh.
This dude's on horses.
Exactly. What's going on here? And they do one of 2 things. They shoot them first and get rid of them. At which point I take them off the board and they say, well, what were they going to do? And I'm
yeah, you'll find out next time. You need to go and
read. They've quite often drawn firepower that would have been much better
spent on something else.
Or they ignore them.
Yeah.
And they run around the battlefield claiming objectives. You know, destroying little...
I can say they'll be quite good in Maelstrom games as well.
Great in Maelstrom. Yeah, really, really useful.
I tell you, my blob of 30 guys, my 3 blobs of 10 is now, especially if you can get them painted really nicely, right? They just, if you run that, your opponent's going to look at you and go, where do I start? You know, he's never going to see past my beautiful cavalry. Now I don't know whether to go for Prussians or Scotsmen, and have the Scotsmen's kilts all up. I'm definitely going to do this. You know, it's I thought our Imperial Guard project here in BC4 was effectively over, but now I realize no, not a bit of it. We need Rough Riders. We need a beautiful Rough Rider detachment that we can bring into the whole thing. I think it'd be amazing.
Well, again, like all good cavalry, they're best coming in late. You know, using them late game.
Also hold them back.
Hold them back and use them late game. You know, stick them in reserve, or you know, that's why the outflank is so good as well.
Yeah.
Use them to tie up those back line.
Right. So get your devastation down. Get them all. Get your opponent all whittled out, and then late game rush them onto the objectives and rush them into the. I don't know. I'm still tempted to get them up there at the start and just have. So, I mean, I think tactically there's options to explore there to see.
Yeah, I mean they're a kind of unit that are never going to be a kind of tech wraith.
Yeah,
they're never going to be a lemon russ, but they're a unit that people don't quite know what to do with when they face them, and they're a unit that when they do something, you can really enjoy when they achieve something. You know, it's
Yeah.
it's a really it's a lovely. It's always a moment that sticks in your head, and that's why I really wanted to kind of
Awesome.
bring them out today.
I am really grateful that you brought them to my attention. Guys, what's your thoughts on Rough Riders? Have you used them? Have you any ideas for them? I can't wait to shut everything off and get out of the studio. I'm going to tear this place apart to see if we have any plastic Napoleonic horsemen in here. We've got to have something. I'm going to have a look. Also, post below if you have seen any good sources for plastic cavalry and things like that that we could use in our Imperial Guard armies. Even some off-the-wall stuff. Tigers, bears, that kind of stuff.
Lions and tigers and bears.
Post it below. Post it below. AJ, thank you for that.
Thank you.
And we will see you in the next episode of 40k 40k Charted. Hey, I hope you enjoyed that episode. Right, so we have a few links up to help you out. Check out the playlist. We also have a subscribe option, and remember, if you subscribe, to click the bell to ding our dong. Finally, if you're into binge watching and you want a whole lot more 40k Charted, come on over to beastsofwar.com, join Backstage, and you get early access to all of the seasons.